A couple of things I would like to announce here at the very beginning, and that is that we've had to rearrange some of the team's components, and we talked to UTC, the sponsor of Edgar and Cameron's project, and due to the sensitivity of that, they've asked that we limit participation just to UTC employees. So Judith was a member of that team, and sorry we may have to reassign you, but we're looking at providing a new home for her. And since we're down to 2 teams that she can park, both with 4, and asked the preference, looking at perhaps her joining your team. And so I know you sent some traffic here. I want to talk a little bit about team dynamics and those issues at this point. That's part of this. NGS at one point used to have 5 members on a team. That was one of their policies, so I don't see the numbers. It adds diversity actually to the team. So that's one of the first things I want to talk about tonight, and about that change, and then also a little bit about that you're going over as a team. But also, this is going to be informal. I'd like to have a discussion with you, reference the basically prior team deliverables you had. And let's see. Matthew has a request there, and I'm not able to bring up my webcam right now. Let's see if I'm... We can get myself here. You can get the associated voice with the face. So here we are, and welcome to the remote broadcast. So let me ask, what questions do you have at the beginning here?
Well, for me, sir, this is Judith. I'm curious to find out, like, how do I fit in the team? I didn't want to upset the dynamics within the team, and I know they fall along with their project. So just wanted to find this out.
Okay. Okay, that's a good question. Let me ask first about overall. Let me ask how the team, how have you guys been? How things been working out for you in working out times and components and those type of things? Can we have a little bit of a feedback about that?
Hello?
Hey, Jay, I want you to start, Jay.
What was your question? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, okay. Just how's the team been going with the new components, since you've been involved with that? I'm just going to kind of get some feedback from members of the team. Things been working out schedule-wise, content, what's the...
When we have our meetings, we usually meet on time, but the only issue is translating military to civilian. I know my other teammates have a lot of questions because there's a lot of things they don't understand. And if I could get those questions or feedback or any kind of input a lot sooner than what I do. Usually I get them on a Tuesday or even Wednesday. If I could get them sooner, then I would I'd be able to do some research and be able to try to translate that so I can help them understand the process. Because for this course in the military, you've got a lot of cross-functional entities that deal with each other. So even the questions that they ask me, it helps me learn. Because some of the questions they ask, I never thought about because it's always been that way. So it helps me to learn and help me to understand the process as well.
Okay. All right. And let me ask the non-military folks in the group, which in understanding the lingo of the military, is it been challenging? What's your experience been?
Hi, sir. For me, it's been challenging. A lot of the concepts in the language itself, I'd have to wait, to have the discussions to understand what's really going on. And that's when I can really understand what most of the stuff that we're working on means. So I rely a lot on what Jay has to say and how he translates that to us.
How about the acronyms themselves? Are you finding this is like a new language?
Yes.
For me, I am, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
with the acronyms, I try to write them out of what they mean, but still, even with knowing what it means, you still have to translate what kind of unit or process that is in the civilian world, because it's still different. Like our COSO, we have a COSO, which is a middleman of the supply unit. And somebody asked me what was the difference between COSO and supply. And that was a good question for me because I didn't know, because I never thought about it that way. And then I asked.
Sure. Almost all the teams will have a similar issue because almost no one works within the same industry. The only two we have is the UTC that may share common language, common culture, common understanding of the operational environment. And your diversity, because you don't understand it, you're not looking at it in the same way, is been my experience where a lot of the benefits been for the teams. And so it may take you a little extra, but once you kind of go through the process and get a learning curve and understanding what the organization is about, but the tools will be the same. I mean, the approaches will be wherever we have will be applicable to any of the processes, any of the teams. So the benefit of applying that, common tools to this project and understanding the context of that is where you often you start to say, oh, I can apply it into this type of environment, and it's very similar to maybe something you can correlate. So that process of learning and discussion sometimes is very beneficial because it provides more diversity of thought and provides the ability to think outside, because the opposite probably will be true for the military, is that we've been using these terms, this what this looks, and people are saying, well, is this kind of like this? And you're now getting yourself educated about that. And then, of course, the other thing is going to that the folks who've been totally in the civilian world, you get to appreciate how maybe the military processes, which are been set up and often are very well refined, apply. So there's kind of that exchange of ideas that's sometimes very helpful and healthy. Just getting information back and forth about the military and understanding that almost all the teams at the very beginning have some part of that. But a little bit more about team so far. Are you guys been able to work well?
I think so. Like I said, we've just got those minor hurdles, but I think we're getting over them.
Yeah. Now, let me ask, is there any, and Judith asked for, basically, how do I fit into the team? I'm going to circle back and we'll answer that question in a moment. But the potential, right now, I don't have, unless any of you have any other projects that may have sprung up or you're thinking about since the last time we met or since the beginning of this course?
I have not.
I don't have any project.
And DeCarlo?
No, none.
All right. And so the integration of Judith into the team in what would be the role and your roles and responsibilities in here. You've listed the things that you do in here, and you can rotate these as well. You've got things assigned in the different roles and responsibilities. Sometimes you may want to, either share them or provide this. But basically, one of the things when you bring into any new member into a team, not only this one, but it happens to almost every other team. You review the ground roles and say, here's where I'm going to fit. You go through the process of orienting to the organization. And one of the things that's very helpful, and we just did this with the last team, did you guys kind of just sit back and say, what's the type of unit is this? How many people are there? What's their mission? And just kind of describe big picture wise that. Have you guys done that?
No, sir.
No, we have not.
And that might be helpful when you get together. It's just kind of go through and talk about it in a way that we discussed, I think, earlier on, is that here's what our mission is. Here's about how many people are here. Here's who we serve. And a lot of the stuff that you got in these charts that we were talking about tonight provides that background. And then, talk about, in regards to not only those components, but a little bit about, what the champion does, what type of responsibilities that he has, who does he oversee and that type of thing. Sometimes like that provides a little bit of overlap or context in the big picture. And that's what really a large part of this define phase is about. It's not only you defining the project, but all of you getting to understand it the same way and getting to understand what they do and how they do it. And then you're going to, for the folks who are outside the military, even I think Judith, have you ever been in maintenance at all? Or you been into any type of depot type of operations?
Not maintenance. I have some knowledge of it from my last unit, but not much, really.
Okay. That's so. Okay. All right. So one of the things then, and what I would like to do is that here we are. We're kind of at the end of the courses that you'll have with me directly, and tentatively, what we've got is Judith. Want to see if this works out logistically, and that we are interested in introducing, because what you're kind of doing is going through the phases of team again. If you think about, we talked about the team dynamics, remember that? Well, every time anybody changes or comes into the team, you change the team dynamics a little bit. So getting acquainted with the ground rules, getting an orientation to the unit, and then describing what your roles would be. We can start taking what you've listed here. You got a good list of them, and talk about what you may be able to pick up. But after you kind of have that introduction into this, what I'd be very interested in knowing, even though I don't have a class with you after this, is this a good fit? Does this work logistically, schedules? And then, because I would like to make a decision if, because we have one other choice, but if this works out well, then we'll remain that way. But if not, I would like to know if there's any issues and try to resolve them as soon as I can, after tonight or after you get into maybe even your next course. You may not realize that till after a few meetings and that type of thing. And she just kind of parachuted in this evening from and I asked her to join in to kind of listen and get oriented because I thought it'd be a good thing, and then also to ensure that we don't violate any of the champions issues that UTC had. Anything else on team at this point we have? And let me check my chat. Oh, good. I see the welcome. Be sure to welcome it and get back. Judith, do you have any other questions? Or
No, sir. Looking forward to getting with the team and figure this out, like roles and responsibilities, and also, you know, I'm open to the schedule. Whatever they have, I'll make it work. So we
all right.
shall see.
So, Professor, hello?
Yes.
This is basically for the team. I don't know if we're all aware of that of Matthew's unique situation. I just found out probably a couple of weeks ago, but you know, it's something that we can work around. It's just we have to, anytime we talk about anything, we have to make sure that we write it down and send it in a message because he is deaf. So when we talk, he can't hear what we're saying when we have our meetings or even like tonight. So it's just got to make that extra effort to ensure that he gets that information because he is the team leader and he needs to know everything that's going on.
Yeah. And what we'll do, I'm recording this. I don't normally record mentoring sessions. And what the school does, and even for our large webinars, they send them to a firm that does transcripts that take the webinar and then transcribe it into a written form and provide it to them. So we're doing that this evening, and I understand that. Yeah. And I'm very interested also to get feedback about what we can do to improve that process or the challenges that may be involved so that we can join in with the school if necessary to see what we might be able to do or if there's any processes we can change, other procedures to ensure that we do. And that's why one of the reasons I'm also having this visually in a webcam so that I'm sure Matthew has some capability to look at and read lips as well. So yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate the effort everyone is putting in, and if there's any other comments about this process, I'd be glad to hear about. Okay. And I'll be glad to hang on afterwards. Let me get into the material because I want to talk about your assignments. And I purposely kind of not graded your assignments because I found that talking with it and verbally going over it and understanding it helps me understand what you have. And what we'll do tonight is that as we go through the discussion, and this set of slides you have will be your baseline. These will be ones that you will add to. You'll be maybe refining many of these slides. I'm going to give you an idea of which ones will be required for your presentations that will go through the entire breadth and depth of the course. Because there are certain slides that will be briefed in most of your courses and included in your final presentation. So I'll give you an idea of which ones those are. And there will be optional ones that you will want to include. Let's see. Now, Matthew, I believe, has set up the portal, not the portal, but the tracker.
Yes, sir, he has.
Okay. Any issues, any problems from that?
No, sir. So far, so good.
Okay, great. There is one issue that our IT director, Elaine, brought up, that it currently has 4 people listed in the for the teams. That's the way it was set up, and she's working on a solution to add Judith into the tracker. So this set of slides, after we talk about it tonight, and you make whatever corrections that we talk about, this will be uploaded into the tracker. This will be one that we will have then as your baseline. And so this will be one of the things that you want to have accomplished before you start your next course and upload it into the tracker, and then I'll do this. Typically, it's just one individual that primarily does that update. You don't have to get into the into the aspect of all of you updating. Just one member from the team is sufficient, but be sure you know how to get in there if you need to. And it'll be situational from course to course, which slides or what materials that you may need to upload. And there's this set, and then there will be like the charter, and there'll be those things that will be signed and required approval from your champion on the various recommendations that you have. Okay, so let's continue on. Ground rules would typically be one of those that are going to be optional. And here we got a lot of information. Judith, review it, take a look at it. If you've got questions, be sure that you as a team discuss this. You got quite a list. You guys did well. And don't worry about keeping these the same. They're supposed to be dynamic. I will get back with you in September, I think is when Master Business Process 2. And part of that course is actually a review of how do you think you're proceeding as a team, how you are proceeding with the project. And so ground rules are meant to be modified if you need to make some changes. If things aren't working, you're not getting things done, or there's conflicts, feel free to see if you want to adjust your ground rules. And then when we get back together in Master Business Process 2, you can say, okay, here's the things we changed up about what we thought, or here's some of the issues we had. So we were kind of looking for how you manage your own team dynamics as well. So I'm not going to cover much about this, but like I said, has done well. And if you have any changes, this is for your own self-management in here. And Judith, if you have additions or ideas you would like to add into this, you got recognized Murphy as a fourth member, anticipate the plan, that type of thing. Well, okay. So as we go through here, be sure you understand them, and that the most important part that most teams fall down on is the compliance of them. So let's get to the new things and talk about the problem statement. Okay. Let me ask, what is readiness? And Jay, don't say a word.
I had you covered.
Okay. All right. What is readiness? What are we doing? The common theme is readiness. You want to take a stab at that? In your own words, what does it mean?
Basically, just being prepared.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
I said basically it's just being prepared.
Being prepared, yeah. Okay. Anyone else have an idea what the context, and particularly in the military context? Okay. This is a pretty good definition here, but and Jay, correct me wrong, or Judith, is that readiness, at least when I was in the military, was your ability to go to war. Can you go do your mission?
Exactly.
Readiness, yeah, that's the bottom line for the military, is that they have the ability to respond to anything whenever they're needed in a way that's appropriate. That means people need to be trained, the equipment needs to be ready to go. They have all this put together so that whatever they're called on, whatever their mission is to do, they're able to do it in a very effective and efficient manner. Right? So,
Yes, sir.
that's it. And that's what we're really talking about. And this is something that is consistent in the military. They always are evaluating this to see whether we're capable, or the organization is, and there's ratings to this, right? If you're not at a particular level, and they rate readiness and your ability to be, and that means that all the equipment and people are consistently evaluated. If they're not ready, and they fall down beneath a particular level, whatever they're prescribed to be at, it's pretty emotional. They get a lot of attention. So it's a very key business driver, if you put it into a business thing, is that readiness is one of the things that is critical, that it is a glass ball that cannot be ever allowed to get beneath a particular level. And so that's what really a large part of this. Now, how about research and rescue squadron? What is that?
Research and rescue, like for the research, but usually mostly humanitarian. If somebody goes down, or even here, because we're close to Florida, if there's a boating accident or somebody gets lost out to sea, we go and look for them.
All right, so they go out, and it's kind of sound like a Coast Guard mission almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's a similar type of thing where you go out to get pilots or you get down material.
Very similar, sir. We call it search and rescue. So,
in downtime, that's probably a key term, and it basically is that if the equipment's not ready, if it's out because it's getting maintained, or it is not able to fly, or if it's not usable at the time that it's needed, that's the downtime. That is, what we're talking about here, is that it's that downtime means that basically it's not able to meet that readiness. And so let's look at your problem statement here. In discussing this one, downtime prolonged due to aircraft material unavailability for the maintenance and repair. Okay. In your own words, what are you working on? What do you think is the key metric? What are you working on here in regards to the essence of your project?
I'll leave that up to the rest of the team to, see if they understand or have a concept of what's going on. So I won't answer.
Okay. Yeah, because we have a lot of terms in here which are military oriented in here, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
You bet. Okay. Let's just see if we can put them into common language. Okay. First of all, the problem statement should cover what's some of the criteria for a good problem statement. Did we cover that in class? And remember, we talked about what should a good problem statement have in there. Anybody remember what some of those things are?
You should be able to collect data, and the data should be measurable.
Okay. All right. What's yeah, and you're gonna have to have a measure in here, right? A numerical measure. Good day. Anybody else remember some of the criteria, some of the things we talked about what a good problem statement should have in it? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the alphabet. It does not pertain to the first part of the alphabet.
you talk about the cost, time, and quality?
Yeah, cost, quality, and time. We're going to have a metric around that, so that's important. All right. And you remember the discussion around the five, around the W's, right? What, when, where? Yeah. Talk about those areas.
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at your problem statement. Okay, what's the what? Well, search and rescue squadron, right? That's the who. What you got basically what you. And you got aircraft that they use to go out and do the searching that. Well, they're not ready. They're not ready to go. And the reason is then they don't have the parts. Is that right, Jay? They don't have the parts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what's the focus in here in cost, quality, and time? Is this the key metric? Which one is that most important? What are you looking at here, guys? What do you think? Is it cost, quality, or time?
I think it's quality.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Anybody catch what DeCarlo said? I'm sorry. Or could you repeat it, please?
She said quality.
Oh, quality. Okay.
I would say time too, because it says search and rescue squadron aircraft downtime prolonged due to aircraft part and material unavailability.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it covers the time, the quality, and also what's costing the search and rescue squadron not to meet their readiness level.
Okay. Now, yeah, because your focus really is that, right? You want to get the delays and are getting, and there's probably a lot of things also that goes into delays, but you're focusing in and narrowing it down to the delays are due to the parts, right? That are necessary to maintain that that aircraft. So basically, is that there's an issue with parts, okay, and the outcome is that they're fully mission capable. Now, they're available for that use. Their ability to get it back in is huge. In other words, it's just not the fact that it's not working, but you'll be able to get it back in quickly. And so cut down the delay that they have in getting the parts, get it maintained and bring it back up. And so the rest of it, you bring it back in at a higher level. But the real focus then is, what do you think? Is there anything in here about cost? Do you see anything in here about cost?
I got a little insight. We had problems for the last 2 weeks as far as concerning cost. We had a component, which is an aircraft part, that went bad because of a socket or insert. It's an adapter insert. It's a piece that costs maybe $1.60, but we could not order it through the supply system. We had to order the whole component just to get that little part off of it. That's a lot of wasted money. The component part was like $5,700, whereas just the plug was $1.39.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And later on through the course, what you're going to do, you'll have some financial measures. You'll look at and say, okay, how do we save money for this organization? What is return on investment? We maybe got smarter ways to get the parts. We looked at perhaps, if there's any, in the military usually don't have overtime, but there will be ways, and you'll cover that later on, about different ways to figure out how your recommendations will deliver on a financial return on investment. But for the military, for the most part, they don't look at things at money. The most important thing for them is ensuring, things are ready to go to war, and sometimes they are ready to be used in this mission. That's the key thing. And sometimes they're willing to pay a large sum of money just to get it back into action quickly. But they're always it's not the key driver like you would in the business sector, just because of, well, they're not making a profit, is one thing. So getting what are we going to measure in here? Because we got to get to a hard number, right? Is it how long the aircraft are down? Is that what we're measuring, do you think, Jay?
Yes, sir.
In that maintenance area?
So we're trying to measure how long the aircraft is down, how many aircraft are down, and how long it took to get the parts, how long it took to get the aircraft back, FMC versus whatever the standard or the expectations.
Uh-huh. Okay. Because normally these aircraft come in and they have a maintenance and repair schedule, right? There's, you know, if
Yes,
it's,
sir.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And that,
When we're talking about a repair schedule, we have what we call ISOs, and that's the aircraft is scheduled to go into maintenance, where we take it down and we bring it, take it into the ISO, and they do inspections. And a lot of time we have it scheduled and they go into the ISO phase, but they haven't pre-ordered parts that they know they need, and they try to order them while it's in there when they could have done that beforehand. When it gets in there, it's ready to start working and fix.
okay. Yeah, and so basically the people are supposed to do, you know, either return this if it's maintenance, in other words, return it back to operational, or just there's two usually types. One is corrective maintenance, right? You know, if it's down because something broke or worn out,
Yes,
or preventive maintenance. Are you involved with that as well? In other words, they come in routinely and go through this, kind of like taking your car into Jiffy Lube to get the oil changed. You know, it has a regular schedule, as opposed to something that's not working, like your car doesn't start. And then there's two different maintenance categories. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The two maintenance, we have scheduled and unscheduled. Those are our two different maintenance categories.
All right. And my recommendation is that that's a pretty big piece typically, you know, both of those. And you may even look at narrowing your project down, like one's on corrective maintenance or the other one's on preventive maintenance. We can talk about that later. But basically, the parts that are needed for those guys to work on that aircraft. And so you can start looking at how many are these, you know, being delayed and getting that maintenance done, and how many are for parts, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. That's what we're talking about perhaps then, is how many of the aircraft or what type of aircraft, and are we looking at different types of airframes?
No, sir. It's the C-130J.
Okay, so this is the type of aircraft. Now, looking at a lot of them, so that tells you scope, and then you may be looking at then what are the part, you know, how many of the aircraft are you know, being repaired on the time at the schedule they should have, and how many and the ones that are being delayed for parts.
I've got a question, Chris. Hello?
Okay. Yeah.
On our base, my unit deals with the C-130Js, but we have A-10s and H-60s, which are choppers, and the supply system handles all of those aircraft. So should we, it's not like our section has its own supply section. You got one supply section using or working for all these three different aircraft. And I think a lot of times they're overmanned or bogged down, so they can't get the parts to each unit when they're supposed to. Is that something we should be trying to should think about measuring and looking into?
Yeah, so here's what I would recommend is that let's narrow it down. It's a lot easier for you guys to expand it than it is to narrow it. So let's maybe look at the C-130s alone. Okay?
Roger that.
Yeah. And so what you have then, okay, the who of this, let's narrow it down. Says, okay, there's maybe parts issue to apply to all. You say, we're going to look at, okay, and you may look at whether it's parts for preventive maintenance or repair maintenance. You know, that's another way to look at that. But the repair for that 130, okay, are not meeting their readiness target, and of that, you know, 20% or 50% or like that were due to parts not being on hand, something like that. Is there then a way to measure that the parts are not on hand? Is there a particular evaluation, measurement of that?
Not one I can think of right offhand, but I know there's one out there. I'll have to get with the supply units.
Yeah.
To see if they have a database or some kind of tracking system.
Okay. Yeah. How much? Because today I was actually kind of working on a different area, but basically, why the work orders are not being done on the time that they should be done, and how many were waiting for parts. And typically, there's a database or something like that that will tell you of all the things that we are being delayed in or waiting part status, and you've got a list. So what you'll do now at this early stage is just get a placeholder. You need one that says, we need to measure something around these parts. And it's typically how many were not available based on the type of maintenance. And then you're going to be able to say, okay, we used to call them in the Army prescribed load list. In other words, the parts that should have been there weren't there, and then there are other ones that shouldn't be. But basically is that, let's take a look at a number if there's a way to track that. And if you want to kick that around and run that by me and see what you come up with. But basically, if you are looking at availability of parts for maintenance, and we can get to some say, okay, we have X amount of C-130s that are down, that, you know, for excessive amount of days, whatever that is, X, or not at the readiness rate. Then, and then how many of them are down or delayed because of parts alone, and that usually is really pretty large. So, does that make sense to you guys? Did I lose you anywhere? Or I'm sure many of you are kind of scratching your heads, particularly for those who are in the civilian side.
Yeah, I understand it.
AJ, how about the comments from Judith or Megan?
I understand it, sir. My question was whether, I think you spoke about it already, but whether or not there's a number of aircraft that should be fully mission capable versus if you're counting, okay, this unit needs 100 aircraft. And of the 100 aircraft, it's acceptable to have 40 of them fully mission capable and 60 under maintenance. So is there something like that for your unit, Jehi?
Yeah. Again, Jay, you're the expert perhaps here, is that fully mission capable, sometimes there's a lot of things involved with that. And I would just recommend you narrow it down, not to the mission capable, but was the maintenance and repair done on time? Or there's a lot of delays in getting those aircrafts done, and maybe by the schedule that they should be. Is there a schedule then for the, you know, like the maintenance should be happening for, you know, from this period to this period, but it takes longer because parts aren't there?
Yes, sir. There is.
Yeah.
So we have our ISO checks, our A checks, and B checks. That's maintenance is scheduled that we know is coming up. We have schedulers, which is another department or unit, and they schedule that. So we know this maintenance is coming up for this aircraft, so it's expected to be down.
Okay, right. Yeah, because it's scheduled. It's something that's expected, but it's
Right.
not expected to be in there forever.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah, yeah. It's supposed to be in there and out, right? And it takes a long time, you know, beyond what's scheduled. Then you got a problem, and I would recommend that's maybe where you start to take your problem statement as opposed to the mission capable, because a lot of other stuff get into it. But how many of them are waiting parts that didn't meet the schedule, you know, when it's, you know, at the time that it should have been? Would that be about right, you think?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And that's a little bit simpler to understand. The fully mission capable, that's the outcome, but let's just kind of figure on, there's a schedule that they should be making when they do this maintenance. If they are, what we used to call them on dead time or downtime, is that there's a standard when they should be back in operation. In other words, it takes more than 3 days or a week or 10 days, you know, you're violating that, you know, turnaround time, because and if the scheduled maintenance isn't meeting the schedule that it's supposed to have been on originally due to parts, then you want to track that. So I recommend us look at the scheduling of that, how long they're in maintenance, and for those that didn't meet the standard for how long they should have been, there's going to be parts will always be a part of that. You take a look at, well, how many are not meeting that because of parts? Because the other things that sometimes it causes them not to be pushing, you know, meeting the schedule. Well, they don't have enough people. They got too many things down. They don't have enough mechanics. They don't have people that are well trained enough. Keep making mistakes, errors, or a variety of other things. So you want to just narrow it down to parts, and so that's what you want to do with the prop set. Nicolo, does that help at all? Does it clear it up a little bit? Or Megan, or Judith?
For me, it makes it clear.
Okay, great. All right, let me just say, these are typically really wonderful projects because there's so much that can go wrong. Okay, the part system is usually complex. And that's one of the things I want you to do is that part of the things that we do at the very beginning, I'm spending a lot more time on the problem statement because this is really the thing that will provide you focus. And if you don't do this well about developing the requirements of what you're going to be looking at, is that you will have a tendency to wonder. And one of the purposes is to narrow things down. So I'm going to tell you right now, this will go through iterations. Almost every NGS team will rewrite their problem statement, particularly as you start to get a little bit more data. Once you increase in your understanding of how to write good problem statements and what you want to do. So this is very normal for the first time iteration of a problem statement. You've got kind of a broad thing. But use some of the principles we talked about. Let's say, okay, now how long has this been going on? Has this been, Jay, have you had any sense, has this problem gotten better or worse or stayed about the same, let's say in the last year? Jay, did I lose you?
I'm here. My sound went off. I don't know what happened. What was your question?
Oh, the question was, how long has this been? Is this problem getting worse? Is it staying about the same?
Aircraft parts has been a problem for all the 24 years I've been in the military.
Yes. Yeah. But has this been about the same? Let's say last year you got a gut feel for. Have you been there for a while?
I've been here a little over a year.
Okay. Since the time you've been there, how would you say this?
I'd say it's getting worse. Our C-130Js are brand new aircraft off the assembly line. So the more they fly them, the more they start breaking, the more we see that there's a parts issue.
And what you can do is start to take a look at, it may be possible, you may go back to these records and say, the average time aircraft have been down has been X amount of days due to maintenance and parts, okay? And this is what it was, last year, last quarter. This is where it is average this year or this quarter. And it tells you whether this problem is getting worse or better. Because part of the problem, the reason of a problem statement is you're given a business case, okay? And you're saying, if we don't fix this, and this looks like it's getting worse over time, then it really adds a compelling reason to work on this project. And in addition to saying what we're going to work on, it provides a business case. Why do you want to work on it? Well, we're not meeting our readiness rates. We're meeting our maintenance schedules. It is one that since the last few years have gotten worse, okay? And what you want to have then later on, once you start to collect some data, you'll have some placeholders in here. So in this problem statement book is the number of aircraft not meeting maintenance schedule is X% of one schedule, for instance, okay? This has gone, is becoming an increasingly worse problem in the last year. Now, what you might then do when you start collecting some data later on, when we do the measure phase, you can collect that data and says, okay, let's go figure that out. Let's go actually look at it. So all you do at this point, we have X% of aircraft not meeting their aircraft schedule, okay, and then this problem over the last year has gotten, 10% worse or 20% worse or increased in average, something like that. So what you're doing now is putting a placeholder for the numericals that later on that you will go collect. So all you're doing is kind of thinking about how will I quantify this problem and what it might be. So just put in there, even for the data you don't have, that you will be getting later on, like by X% or, missing goals by this percent, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So what I like to do is then you got this duration, you got specific. Let's put in the C-130 airframe in there so that we get a little bit more narrowed down about who and where will be all of this. And then we'll put some placeholders for the quantitative measures. And we'll revisit this, but that'll be good enough at this point in your journey. So, all right. Hey, I want to be sensitive of time here. We're coming up on that. Anybody needs to drop off? Okay. I know the kids are probably waiting on mom. Right, Megan?
Yes, my son is.
Okay, let me kind of do this because I wanted to really kind of spend a lot of time on the problem statement because it's so important, more so than maybe the other ones at this point. But let me talk about this. The force field analysis, you're going to revisit this in the project management class, and its purpose is really to help you think about what are the things that would jeopardize the success of your project. What we don't have in here that you will be adding later on, is there anything that would jeopardize the success of this project? And then what are you going to do about it? And so you're going to, let me cover the other charts and come back to this one because you're going to be revisiting this one. But basically anything in here that may jeopardize your project you want to have in your restraining. And it may also include anything that you see from your personal, like, hey, some of you, I'm going to get a new job, I'm going to be leaving, impacts on you as a person that may be in here as a team that you want to have in it. So it's not just at the sponsoring organization level, but it's anything that within your team that you need to consider that would jeopardize, anything at all that would jeopardize the success of your project. And there's a lot of reasons, compelling reasons to do this project, clearly we have here, but collecting data, one of your restraints is maybe also just understanding the system, being able to convey that. So you're actually taking countermeasures already by looking at, well, what are the acronyms? There are books out there that actually have, the military acronyms that would spell out almost everything you see. So that would be kind of a restraining thing from one of your part, but just you can put even things like that on here, so that anything that keeps you from being successful or meeting the goals and things like that. And then behind here, when we do the project management class, is then what do you do to mitigation plan? What are your countermeasures to ensure that whatever's on the restraining part doesn't impact you? And so we'll revisit that a little bit more. Okay, SIPOC. What is the purpose of a SIPOC? Can someone explain that? In your own words, what's the value of a SIPOC? To fulfill the assignment requirement. Well, that's one. Okay. All right. Let me give you a couple of prompts on this. And by the way, this is what you want to do for every one of the charts you ever put together. As a team, when you put them together, go through and say, here's what the purpose of this is. This is how we're going to use it. And then you brief what's in here. And the SIPOC and why it's in the define phase is that it is a high-level view of the entire project. It's a 1 over 50,000 foot view of your project. It's often how it's explained. And it shows who are the suppliers, what do they provide, the process, which is at a macro level here, what do they provide, and then the customers. And so that's what this intent is to do that. But it also helps you to think about scope and say, okay, are we going to be including suppliers in our project? In other words, are we going to look back and look at these folks that provide all the way back, or are we just going to look at from the time it arrives in the squadron or in the maintenance outfit? And so you talk about it in that way too. So the SIPOC provides a view of all the key things that kind of contribute to your project. It makes you think about it in that way as a systems view. And then you talk about it in, are these things going to be included in your scope? And so sometimes you say, hey, we're not going to actually be looking all the way back to the warehouse. are looking at the contractors. We're going to be looking actually at the ordering part. We're going to be looking at maybe where we order things with these people that supply us, but we're not actually going to go stomp around their warehouses or look at their processes. We're going to look at our ordering part, which is, in this blue box in the middle is where our process starts. So that's kind of how you orient. The purpose is, think about if you had somebody that knows nothing about this project, okay, is that what you're now doing is talking about what's going to be involved in your process, what steps are going to be included, and what are the customers and their, what do they want from this process. So that's kind of the big high level that this has, is that it provides then context. Now, a good context, a good one to follow in sequencing this is that if you look at it, right, the last thing you talk about are the customers. So, in this list of customers, you got people that work on the mechanics, right, that use the parts. You got the actual you got aircraft maintainers. What are those? Are there just is that the mechanic crews, the aircraft maintainers? Is this all the same one?
Yes, sir. Basically, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's the ones that receive the parts and that they put them on, right? So they're the primary customer of that. Okay. And then there is also, you guys, after you fix this, who do you give the aircraft back to? Where do they go?
If the aircraft is in an inspection, like a ISO inspection, we give it to another squadron. I think they're EMS. For unscheduled maintenance, we keep the aircraft. We work on our own aircraft.
Okay. All right. And so you may want to separate those in two different categories. For scheduled maintenance, these are the customers, and for on-scheduled maintenance, these are the customers, right?
Roger that. Good idea.
Yeah. And actually, when they bring the aircraft in, right, for somebody external to you guys, do they provide you a technical inspection, or they stay with the aircraft?
When the aircraft comes in, or like after each flight, they do what's called a post inspection.
Yeah, because typically a lot of times, before they turn over an aircraft to a maintenance unit, they do an inspection, and then then they give it back to them. Okay, with what they did to improve it. So yeah, you can break it down by two different categories. That would be great because there are different requirements between the two. And then what you would do then, a good way to do it is take maybe not, but take CRM in behind that, because that's a natural thing. Okay, and then you say, okay, of these two customer groups, the unscheduled and scheduled, here's what they need from this. This is what they're looking for. They're looking for all the maintenance and all the items to be complete, all the paperwork is done, all those type of things. And if it's staying with you guys, in other words, it stays in this, then what are those requirements if they're different? And so what you really want to do then, put the two different customers here, put a category in here, add customers. And this may not be really clear at this point, but once you kind of break it out between those two categories of unscheduled and scheduled maintenance, then think about how are they different and how are they the same. We got to do the same thing. We're supposed to provide it to them on the time that they want it, with all the items completed type of thing. And then if there's anything that they need to follow up on or something like that, there would be type of things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you've got some evolution here. So first thing is just kind of break it down. Then as you go through your journey from here, and think about this and say, even asking people within the organization, what are the differences? What do we got to do? Sometimes it's different sections. They've got different priorities and those type of things. Let's go back to your current map. Now this is the purpose of this one, again, is in the define phase, just saying, what are we looking at here? And so you got aircraft due maintenance, and is this at the scheduling point? What's the first step in your process you're looking at?
Okay. So the aircraft due maintenance for scheduled maintenance, that's the schedulers, they schedule a time for the aircraft to go into maintenance or inspection phase. On the other half of that, the unscheduled maintenance, that's unpredictable. That's maintenance that we didn't know what was going to happen if the aircraft breaks after a flight.
My recommendation is that at this point, what Jay just mentioned is decide if you're going to do both of those or only one of those as a part of your scope. I think they're distinct enough. I think they are complex enough that you would have plenty to work on if you just take one of those. And I bet you if you take one of those, you'll come up with ideas you can fix for the other one too, right? You can apply some things to both, but
Yes,
there's
sir.
going to be, yeah. And what I would recommend, like you did here, color coding is great. You say, okay, here's the processes. There are really two elements to it, on schedule, schedule. And is one of these more problematic than the other one? Does one have a bigger issue than the other one?
I think with the unscheduled, because it's unpredictable, we don't know what broke. We've got to do troubleshooting. Versus scheduled maintenance, we know exactly what needs to be done, exactly what parts we need to order.
Okay. So one of the things I would recommend is you discuss which is the more important to the champion for you to work on. And you can work on one, and if you get it done, and then you got enough time left in your schedule for the NGS, you can work on the other one. Or you can think about how you may be able to work on parts, but I would recommend that you narrow it down. Maybe consider it because, like you said, the one that you got regular maintenance, typically there's parts lined up, they're scheduled, they're planned. The other one is spontaneous. You know, the equipment broke. We got to get it back out. Something on it is not operational, so that one's got some urgency to it, right? And that one perhaps has, you know, doesn't have as much scheduling and other things that you can plan for. So I would recommend the team and the champion, you guys agree with maybe, if this makes sense to you, to split it up that way, because the dynamics and figuring out the parts and all that other stuff is different between those two lines here. And you did a good job just kind of laying out the high level. It allows us to have this discussion. If you hadn't laid it out, the big macro parts like this, we'd never have this discussion. You wouldn't be able to get to scope. So you did exactly what was the intent with this. Later on, when you do your measure phase is when you can start breaking down these steps, and maybe there will be components to it and get a little bit more detail into it. But you're fairly high level here, which is where you ought to be, because you say, okay, this is what we're going to look at. And we're going to look at from the time that if it's on schedule, when the aircraft, you're notified that it's coming in, or actually when it rolls into the bay, or, you know, you really need to have a start point that's very clear for that, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this is good. Yeah, there's some more discussion on this as we go forward. And let's see, I think that's the main ones we covered here. We covered a lot here in the last, and I hope I haven't overloaded you. But let me just kind of ask, for the things that we've covered, do you have any questions? Or has it helped you at any way?
Well, I don't have any questions, but a lot of the stuff that you brought up, I can see where it would be more beneficial to do it that way. So I guess sometime this week I'll get with the team and decide whether they want to do, how they want to do it. Like you said, the scheduled maintenance and unscheduled maintenance, as you can see from the map, it's the same process, but it's two different processes.
Let me double check some of the comments here. Yeah, you're right. So these are good questions. You're starting to answer some good questions. And what I would offer as well, as you go through, again, because this is our last class we have together, that if there are issues, just translating this and going through that, I'd be glad to, pop in if I can with a team meeting, provide any insight, as we go through up front, later on. If I'm available, I'd be glad to, try to broker my experience and see if it helps. But you're on the right track, and with some refinement, is think about the problem statement and put some placeholders in there. Your customer groups, basically is that we mentioned on the SIPOC for that change there. And let's see, what else we talked about? Split that up, and then in here decide which is the focus of this. Your problem statement should be like a paragraph, so you pick, take this thing off that you have over here, the definition. You just want to have a paragraph, and then start putting, the things we talked about. So those are my overall guidance. You as a team in your course now, got dynamics. We've added. I understand that. But I'm pleased with your individual and with the work you guys have done. And I think I recognize, and I think you guys as well, that a lot of this has been Jay because he understands the product. But as you start to go through this process and try to understand it, you're going to be really of a great help. So don't worry about if you're going to kind of fuzzy. It is normal. But if you are stuck, not understanding terms of this, call me in as a resource, and we can see if I can help you resolve any of those type of things. So those are the things I had for you tonight. We're over time. So let me just go through and ask if anybody has any questions. And also, I'm interested if what you thought of value about the course, or any comments you may have about the teaching style, or anything that you thought about the courses that we've had. And so I'm just going to go around the horn here and ask folks for your opinions, if you got any questions and any other comments about the course. So, DeCarlo, are you there? Okay. I'll wait for, if you are, jump in a little bit. Yeah, your sound is off, yes. Okay. And I appreciate you conveying to Matthew. Okay. Judith?
Yes, sir. No questions. Lots to think about. We can definitely see where we can go down a rabbit hole and how to pull back when necessary. So we need to revisit and follow your guidelines.
Well, I think your military translator skills will be a great benefit to the fellow classmates as well. I really appreciate your flexibility. Anything about the courses themselves? Any other feedback?
The course itself and in its entirety?
Yeah.
As a first go, that's my first time trying this online course, and I think the whole concept and the venue and the content of the course have been, I really liked it, and I think we've learned a lot with the size of the class. I like it a lot. And as for the quality management course itself, I've never done this before. And gradually, as we go through the process, we go through the course, I've wondered often, like, hey, maybe I've done this before throughout my career in the military. I've just not have had the chance to really pinpoint and focus on this quality management piece of it. So this kind of like brings everything to the surface and makes me think as I go through my work on a daily basis, managing people, looking at different things within the organization. I tend now to look at things differently.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's music to instructors' ears about what you're gaining from it. So, hey, well, thank you, and appreciate your joining the team on short response tonight too. Megan, comments? Megan, you still there? Jay, why don't we go to you?
The last couple of classes that we've had, it's helped me to understand how to use the tools that we have, that we've been learning about, and how the tools and how to break them down or adapt them to whatever process or organization that you're in.
Uh-huh. Yeah, this is where all the meat is when we start talking about this stuff. How do you use them and how do you make some sense out of them in the real world? Yeah, go ahead. And by the way, if you find things kind of fuzzy or kind of, quite understand it, use the quality language or even this, that's normal. I mean, if you really are really clear about this, then if you've been working in quality for a long period of time, then that may be the norm. But it is for most, you learn new language, learn new concepts, and it takes a while to understand those and be able to, use them in an effective way. But that's part of the design, so good to hear. Okay, anything else? I really appreciate your sponsorship, too, of this. That's very helpful. DeCarlo or Megan, any other comments? Are you able to jump back in?
I'm playing Mario. I'm back.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for breaking down the problem statement for me to be able to understand it more, I guess, not in a military way. So it makes me be able to understand the project a little bit easier.
Good to hear. Yeah. When I was in the military and when I got out, I had to do a lot of translating of what that meant in business terms. But for everything in the military, there's absolutely a process in the civilian world that mirrors that. But it's just being able to translate that, to be able to see that, and sometimes it just takes different ways to explain it. So that was of help. Anything about the course or anything else you want to add in for your comments?
I have enjoyed the courses so far, and they are being very beneficial to me, and how much of this I've already used, but I haven't realized it.
Okay. Well, sit down with the kids and tell them about Mommy's customer requirements. And which one?
That is true.
Because typically their view of the gap is probably going to be a little different than yours.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Let's see. DeCarlo, any other comments? All right. I got it. And let's see. Matthew. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Matthew's comments are very accurate. Depends what the champion is. So that what you really are doing now is defining what you're trying to figure out amongst yourself, and then going back to the champion. This is negotiation things that you'll continue to do back and forth. All right. Well, it doesn't look like any other final comments. Thank you, folks, for this time that you spent. And I look forward to getting back with you. I think it's the fall that actually I will see you again. But if you have any questions about what we talked about tonight, and if you will, just trying to make as much as you can, make additions to the, particularly to the problem statement, focus on that one. And then the other adjustments, then upload your information into the tracker. I will be giving you feedback. I purposely kind of do wait after I have the verbal discussion about your team projects, and every other ones I'll clear that up. You'll get feedback from all the items before final grading, and that should be by next week when you start your next course. So, you know, I don't have your, let's see, I don't know who's teaching you next week, but you know who your next professor is? Oh, Howard Hall, I think.
No, we don't.
Oh yeah, has he changed? Okay. I think you have project management. Is that correct? Does that sound right?
Sir.
Typical NGS graduate students. I'm not sure what I'm doing next week, but I know I'll be doing something. All right. Well, thank you very much for this evening. I'll have this translated into transcripts, and so that Matthew will have the benefit of listening to what we have or reviewing what we've had during this discussion. Thank you very much, and wish you all a good evening. And I'll hang on if anybody has any questions for us. All right.
Good night, sir.
All right.
Night, sir.
All right.